Hello everybody, my name is Kat Bowser. I am your resident fantasy therapist and welcome to my channel. Those of you here for the first time, welcome. My name is Kat Bowser. I'm a licensed therapist. I'm also a writer working on my first novel. And on my channel, I like to dig into what I consider to be the heart of all writing, which is the characters. And the heart of the characters is in their psychology. So that is the angle I take with everything we're going to talk about on my channel. So this video is late. This is actually my third attempt at filming this. I have no idea why this video is giving me such a pain, but it is. But this is continuing with my trope diagnosis series, and for those of you that have been following along, the month of January has been dedicated to some of my favorite tropes. So today is no exception, and we are talking about the Beware the Quiet Ones trope. So first and foremost, this one is actually kind of a combo trope because it's beware the quiet ones and or beware the funny ones. And basically what this trope is it's taking a character who is usually quiet, keeps to themselves, sensitive, or a character who is the funny one, the comic relief, isn't usually serious. And it has a scenario where they finally have enough and they stand up and usually they fight or they state a stance or something along those lines. And I really love this trope. I actually can't believe I almost forgot this trope because I think it's probably one of my top 5 favorites, especially when it's done well. So to start digging into it, I think I'll address the quiet ones and then the funny ones, and we'll just kind of go from there and see where it takes us. So first off, I do want to start with a quote. This is actually, I believe it's from a fantasy novel I actually have not read yet. It's on my list of novels to read from this quote alone, actually. So the quote is, "There are 3 things all wise men fear: the sea in a storm, a night with no moon, and the anger of a gentle man." And that is by Patrick Rothfuss, I think is how you say his name. I'm apologizing right now if I'm saying it wrong. This to me kind of sums up this trope. Because really what it is you're taking someone who is generally very sensitive, very quiet, kind of keeps to themselves, doesn't really ruffle any feathers, so to speak. A lot of times they're either a pacifist or they have pacifist tendencies. And you put them in a scenario where they can no longer maintain that personality trait and they have to step up essentially, and it's not pretty. Most of the time, this is essentially hiding a great deal of power, a great deal of knowledge, strength that they have just not revealed to anybody. And I like this because it is semi-rooted in fact. In fact, I think it's probably very much rooted in fact. Before I got my license, I worked in an inpatient psychiatric facility for 8 years. I worked with children, adults, people with substance abuse problems, people that were court-ordered, people that were in active psychosis, kind of the whole gambit. And it's a very stressful situation for both the participants and the staff, because the participants, a lot of times, they're in a new situation. They've had a lot of their rights taken away. They can't just leave. They can't just pick and choose things they want to do. And the staff don't know what these people are capable of, what they're going to do. So it's a kind of a stressful situation all around. And that's why a lot of the time, the first thing that staff should do is try to build rapport with people, try to get to know them, learn what their issues are, what they're working on, so they can work with them better. But I will say, one thing that is true across the board is staff are much less wary of a patient who is shouting and screaming than they are of a quiet one. And that might not seem to make a lot of sense, but the reason is the person who is screaming, I know what they're feeling. They're telling me that they're upset. They're telling me they're excited. They're telling me that they're angry. And that gives me something to work with. That tells me, okay, I need to start addressing this issue. Someone who is quiet and keeps to themselves and doesn't talk about their emotions, doesn't talk about what they're really feeling, is much more of an enigma. and so you're not real sure what to expect from them. Honest truth, some of the most violent outbursts I have witnessed within the inpatient facility came from the quiet ones, the ones who were bottling everything up and weren't talking about it. So I think that's why also I'm kind of, I like this trope because I think it can be relatable to a lot of people. So the thing that also I think I need to bring up is there is some similarity with another trope, which is called the berserk button, which I've mentioned before, which is basically that one final trigger that makes someone snap. And it is similar, but it's not quite the same. Generally with the berserk button, it's more of like one trigger. There's one specific thing the character can't take. With Beware the Quiet Ones, it's usually a build-up. There's usually been kind of a gradual kind of knocking away at their barriers for a while, and then they just explode. So I also think that this one, it's not just the character's reaction to it, it's everybody else around them's reaction to it. And a lot of times it's this massive shift in their personality. So I'm going to give you guys two examples here. I'm going to start with, first one is from Sailor Moon, which is one I watched as a kid. And this clip is in Japanese. There is an English dub. I don't think it's very good, so I don't want to subject you guys to it. So basically what is going on in this clip is this main character, her name's Hotaru, she has been possessed by this demon who is called Mistress Nine. And she has essentially been trying to push control back, but she keeps getting pushed down until finally she kind of refocuses on the people that are important to her, her father, her best friend, and that gives her the strength to fight back and essentially destroy this demon. And she is a very sickly, weak child. They actually make a point of she has difficulty getting her breath. She is very pale. She gets sick a lot. She doesn't have really any friends except this one best friend. And yet, when she focuses on what she could potentially lose, what this demon is essentially threatening, she suddenly becomes extremely powerful. And she actually wakes up the soldier sailor Saturn inside of her, who is the second most powerful of all the soldiers, because she has the power of destruction. And I love this clip. It's one of my favorites. Right, the next clip, it's also from an anime. I'm biased, I love anime, but this one is probably one of the most famous ones. This is Gohan from Dragon Ball Z, his ascension into Super Saiyan 2, which is at the point where he becomes more powerful than his father. And at this point, I think he's 11. Yeah, I think he's 11 years old. So he's very, very young. And he's essentially been, you really have seen him grow through the series. I mean, he's had outbursts before, like very quick, almost temper tantrum bursts of power, but he's never been able to really harness it. And he's really this gentle kid. I mean, he loves animals, he loves to help people, he's very soft-spoken, is usually trying to cover up when his father kind of forgets his manners, things like that. But I think his transformation is a little different because the trigger is actually this realization that he can let his power go. Before, he's kind of been containing it, and I think he's scared of it, honestly. And this is a moment where he kind of lets it go and just ascends, and honestly, it's glorious. I love it. But the other thing to take note of is, like I said, remember I said there is this big personality shift, and you really see that with this transformation. Because remember, like I said, when we first meet Gohan, he's this very gentle, soft-spoken kid. He's trying to help animals. He's trying to help people, no matter, what. He's always trying to help someone else. And yet, in this scene, he is utterly ruthless. I mean, he doesn't care anymore. And it's enough that, like, his father and even his friends are like, what has happened to this kid? And I think that's very powerful, especially when you kind of get to see him kind of talk about his ruthlessness. And it's when it's a character that you've seen, risk their life to try to heal a dinosaur that could potentially eat him. And now he's saying stuff like this.
Gohan! You've got to take Cell down now before he can regenerate!
Take him down now? No, I think I'll wait. I'm going to let him suffer for a little while.
It's unnerving, but that's the point. And I really think that shift is the real point, because you're getting into raw emotion. And a lot of times when we have emotions, we're still putting them through a filter. So, like, even when you get really angry, unless you go into what we call a blind rage, you still kind of have some control over it. So you may be able to determine, okay, I need to leave this scenario before I say something I'm going to regret. Or, I need to go and work this anger out before I do something stupid. But in this kind of scenario, it's just raw emotion, no filter, no restraints, and it's frightening. And there is another point I want to make on it, but I'll go back to that after I talk about the funny ones, because I think it applies to both. So that being said, let's talk about the funny ones trope. So these are the folks that are the comic relief. These are the folks that are always making people laugh, and they're not really taking things too seriously. And yet, when the situation calls for it, and they're forced to take things seriously, and they're forced to step up and be essentially the hero, all that laughter falls away, and you find out, oh my God, there was a completely different person underneath here. And again, this is rooted in reality. One of the things we have found is that people, especially people that go on to be like professional comedians, most of the time they have very low self-esteem. They have a very high sense of anxiety, and they are also very, what we call hypersensitive. So what all this means essentially is that they see the world for as it is, the good and the bad. So they see how people treat each other, how they talk about each other, how they judge each other. And so they're kind of always have this fear of judgment, of being looked down upon. And that's actually usually why they pursue like the class clown actions and comedy, because they are exercising control over their anxiety. And how they do that is they, in a normal sense, they can't control what people think of them, or when people are going to laugh at them, or in their mind accuse them, laugh at them, however they choose to see it. However, if they go into the field of comedy, they are controlling when the laughter comes. They are controlling when they are in the center of attention. And so it's a way of exercising control over all that fear. And that hypersensitivity is also what lets them be so good at it. Because if you think about it, a lot of times when we're looking at comedy, a lot of it is raw truth. I mean, what some of the best comedy routines are just making fun of things that people generally know to be true, or they've at least thought about, but they don't have the courage to say it or really discuss it. And comics go up there and they make fun of it, and they bring it out in the open, and that's what makes them so popular usually.
And everybody in this room has gotten this when you're driving away from a parent. Drive careful! Duh. What are they going to say? Drive fast and take chances.
people off, Sweet Pea. Use your road rage if you have to.
So these people are ones that are very, very good at putting up a mask and putting up barriers and limitations, ways to keep themselves safe. So in a scenario in your fiction or your book where those barriers have to come down, they are very raw inside. And kind of like I mentioned with the previous one, is when you have just raw emotion, it's very powerful. And it can be very dangerous because you don't have a means to reel it in. And especially if it's from someone who routinely probably pushes their emotions down and doesn't address them, if they're finally unleashed, it's kind of like holding back a wall of water. If you gradually let it out occasionally, then it's not so bad. You can control it, you can kind of direct it where you want it to go. But if it's unleashed all at once, it's a flood. And a lot of times you have to kind of just ride it out until it's done. And that, I think, really ties into the real main reason I love this trope. And this is the point I was saying that I wanted to go back to at the first one, because I think it applies to both of these. It really gives a chance for the other characters to understand this character. Because a lot of times they're finding out there's aspects to this character that they did not know about, that they did not try to learn about. And now it's suddenly front and center in front of them. And it can be a way for them to kind of help this person, help connect with them, help to get to know them better, help them to heal in a lot of sense. Because trauma is not uncommon in this trope either. So, and I really think that's a good message. I think the idea of introducing this idea that these person's friends and family now are faced with, okay, we've obviously missed something very important. We need to fix it. And so we need to talk and we need to connect. And that is probably the most powerful thing you can do with any kind of mental health, is just learn to listen and learn to just connect with someone and let them know that you're going to be there. Doesn't mean you have to fix it. In fact, most of the time you can't. But just the fact that you're telling them, I'm acknowledging that I did not take note of how you were acting or what you were trying to tell me earlier. I'm going to do it now. And I think that's a healthy message to send. And I think that's one reason that I'm so drawn to this trope. So that is the Beware the Quiet / Funny Ones trope. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, I'm sorry it took so long to get it up, but what are you going to do? Technology and stuff. So, as always, if you guys have comments or suggestions, leave them below. I always love to read them and look through them. If you guys enjoy this content, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss when I upload. This week, I'm hoping we'll be back to normal schedule, which is every Thursday and every Sunday. And until I see you guys next time, I hope you have a good one.